Welcome to In Pursuit of Truth. This is your host, Sir Patrick Mactacular. We are back with another week, a week to remember, a week of pursuitude, where the hunters become the hunted. He's on to something, and we're on to something too. We're on to some Q posts. How many we got, John?
9.
Yes. And did you know that 9 is 1 less than 10?
Oh.
Yes, that is a true story. It's been confirmed by science already. 34:27, 55 minutes after the hour of 1. We get this YouTube link here. Q says these people are sick. Hunters become the hunted. And the YouTube link takes you here. And here we are at Little St. James Island, otherwise known as Epstein's Pedophile Island. Yeah, it's not as charming as Little St. James, is it? Now, we don't have time to watch this whole video. It's 4 minutes and 51 seconds, and I'm sure many of you have already seen it. So I'm just going to take you through a few highlights that I found. The first one here is at 1 minute and 17 seconds. I know, right? So we see this little field of grass here. It appears to be elevated because you've got stairs here and a ramp, which leads me to think that they use something that's either wheeled or whatever to be accessible to this spot. Not exactly sure, but you can see there is an impression on the grass, and it's actually marked by these little yellow markers. I'm not sure if you can see them, but you can definitely see the impression. I'm not sure if this would be a stage. It looks like it's leading up to the ramp and up to the steps, so it might be like some sort of performance area. Could be a stage or something like that. It looks like a place where people might meet for concerts or something like that. Who knows? Private parties, and maybe they want to have the event outdoors or whatever. Not really sure. And then you've got this little kiosk over here, which is probably like a taco stand. That's where I'd do with it. I don't know if that's what they do with it, but if I had an island and a patch of grass, I'd put a taco stand there. That's just me, though. Let's move on to 1:35 right here. And we see what looks to be a sundial right here, which probably does not suggest sun worship at all. And if you'll notice, you've got benches, but not just benches, multicolored and ethnically diverse benches outlining the perimeter of the sundial. And you can see over here too, this looks to be, at first I thought it was a goat. It looks like it might be a deer there, but either way it's startled. It's like, what are you doing, man? I'm trying to get my satanic worship on down here at 6 o'clock. Not really sure. Anyway, this guy's got billions of dollars, can't even afford a digital, but you can see that the minutes are filled in up here at the top near midnight, which probably suggests that right around, who knows, solstice time or whatever, might have some sort of little special significance, and they're only really concerned with those minutes. I don't really know. Looks pretty creepy, but let's take another look at it. Here's an overhead view of the sundial, and you can see around the head here, it looks like they've got electric lights here. Now, I suppose they could be cameras, but they look like lights to me. That way you can use your sundial at night. But I have to say that if your sundial requires electricity, you got a crappy sundial. Now you can see out and see all these other small islands off of this island. And if I'm not mistaken, this one right here is called Dog Island. I wonder if that's got anything to do with all those dog tweets. But yeah, Dog Island is just off of this island. And you can see over here a bunch of bungalows and whatnot. Now we see the other side of the island, and we start to get over towards the temple. But over here on the right of your screen, now I'm not really sure, maybe you guys with more expertise can tell me. It looks like this could be a generator here, and I'm not so sure if this is some sort of maybe satellite type equipment, or they could be just floodlights. The camera didn't really get close enough for me to tell. I wasn't able to tell either way. I suppose either one could make sense. And then as we get closer, we see this enclosed area right here, which is weird. There seems to be a whole bunch of patterns along the grass. They almost look like crop circles, but they're definitely not crops. But it looks like you could drive a vehicle in here. Obviously, they made the road to be able to bring things in here. So who knows? Maybe some little vehicles are screwing around in there. Who knows? Maybe they just play soccer in there, and they built the berms up so that the ball would stop going into the ocean. That's annoying. And there's an overhead view of some of those tracks right there. It looks like maybe they have some sort of, who knows, some sort of off-road vehicle maybe, and they're cruising around in that thing. Who knows what that's actually about, but it seems like they want it all enclosed. But you can see right around here, if you look up real close, those look like tire tracks right there. And these look all like impressions, and it looks like some sort of, I don't know, some sort of vehicle cruising around in there. Who knows? Maybe they're playing golf cart polo, which sounds pretty dope, actually. Now we see an overview of the temple here, no longer with the golden dome. That's long since been removed. Interesting that they've got this area cut out around here. This could be some sort of irrigation thing. I'm not really sure, but it also looks like it could suggest something structural, like there might be a structure down below. If you can kind of really sure, but I find it very interesting that they've got it cut around here and they've got it blocked off by ropes, obviously, so you don't fall in. But who knows? It does kind of look, obviously it's perfectly cut. It could be some sort of irrigation thing. I don't really know, but it looks like there might also be something down below. Then we get an overhead view here, which this camera actually spent a bit of time on, and looky there. What's that, John?
Cute.
Nice. How can you tell?
It's gotta see it.
It does. It's got to see it. It's got a little circle, and then it's got a little see it. Nice. Now we see a close-up of this little area here, and as you can see, this is a window here. It looks like the door is on the other side, but you can see in the window, and from what I can tell, these look to be a bunch of cans, whether they're paint cans or who knows, cement or who knows what it is, some sort of materials. And there also seems to be a little bit of scaffolding there and a ladder. Now we see it a little bit lower here, and there's the ladder right there in the window, and I can't really tell what that is beyond that. At first, it looks like a little bit of bedding there, but it also looks like it could be bags, whether it's bags of pre-mixed cement. I'm not really sure. Maybe they're stacked on top of each other. But then if we just look a couple seconds ahead, there we see another angle right there. There's the ladder, there's the scaffolding, and now it looks a little bit more like it could be a bed. I'm not really sure. That also seems to be a window, but whatever it is, it looks like this part is a wall, and I still feel that this could very well be some sort of elevator shaft. It may just be some sort of weird little bedroom. Who knows? Maybe they just do the little satanic-y stuff here. They save all the big productions for someplace else, but they just do the little micro satanic stuff here. Not sure. But here you can see the entrance, and this actually looks like an entrance to an elevator, although looking inside it doesn't take you directly into any kind of elevator, but it sure does look like the entrance to an elevator there. And it looks like whether there was an electric switch there or who knows what that is right there, but either way it takes you into something creepy. So there you go. Thanks to Rusty Shackelford, if that is your real name, that posted that on Twitter. Very great video. I'm surprised it didn't get knocked out of the sky. Let's go ahead and move on for now to 3428, 41 minutes after the hour of 2. We're talking about Ghislaine Maxwell. Follow the family, UK, US 1 and 2. Umbrella surveillance, leapfrog 1 through 4. Points of contact, open source, find number 4. We'll talk about that in just a second, but let's have a look at this New York Post article. And here it is from July 14th, inside the Victoria's Secret pipeline to Jeffrey Epstein. In 2004, Elisabetta Tai was a 21-year-old Italian model with big dreams. A month after arriving in Manhattan, her booker gave her an Upper East Side address and told her he had set up a meeting with the man who would be able to get her a gig modeling for the Victoria's Secret catalog. He told me this is one of the most important people in modeling, Tai told the Post. He said that this man is in charge of Victoria's Secret and he's going to change your life. Jeffrey Epstein did end up changing Tai's life, but not in the way she expected, she said. Epstein, 66, a convicted pedophile, was arrested last week for sexually abusing dozens of minor girls at his Upper East Side mansion and his residence in Palm Beach, Florida. The arrest stems from incidents between 2002 and 2005. I rang the doorbell of this incredible mansion, and a butler answered the door, said Tai, who hails from Padova, a small town near Venice. It was astonishing. It was a very beautiful house, and I saw about 5 models walking around as soon as I walked in. I was so excited. Tai said she was greeted by a woman with short, black hair who showed her into Epstein's office. She doesn't remember the woman's name, although when the Post showed her a photograph of Ghislaine Maxwell, Epstein's gal pal, she confirmed that she looked like the same woman who met her at Epstein's mansion. The British socialite, a daughter of media mogul Robert Maxwell, Mossad has not been charged with a crime, but has been accused by 3 women in court papers of recruiting young women for Epstein. 2 of them allege that both Maxwell and Epstein sexually assaulted them. Okay, well, I will let you read the rest of the story here, but the important thing, I think, is the connection here. Epstein, a financier who was close friends with Ohio billionaire Leslie Wexner, who owned Limited Brands, now L Brands, the parent company of Victoria's Secret. Wexner was so close to Epstein that both men shared ownership of the sprawling East 71st Street mansion where Tai went for the meeting. The deed was transferred in 2011 to Epstein Virgin Island LLC. So it goes on to chronicle her pretty nasty story here, but I'm just going to take you down to the bottom that talks about the connections. Epstein, who was an investor in a Manhattan modeling venture, has been accused by prosecutors of using his connections to the modeling company to audition girls to give him massages that often ended up in sexual abuse. Over the years, it seems Epstein relied on the modeling business to source underage girls for sex, writes Conchita Sarnoff, an investigative reporter in her book Trafficking. A former Manhattan-based model agent who spoke on the condition of anonymity also alleged an Epstein Victoria's Secret pimp pipeline. Epstein, portrayed himself as the back door to get a girl into Victoria's Secret. Some of those girls got in, he said. He promised the catalog and ad campaign jobs, not just the supermodel fashion show gigs, he added. It was still significant cash for a young girl doing the catalog, said the agent. They weren't making hundreds of thousands, but they could make about $5,000 a week modeling for the campaigns or the catalog. Not all the girls sent him got jobs, but a lot of them did. Another Manhattan model entrepreneur told the Post that Maxwell was a constant fixture at Victoria's Secret events. They were always there. There were always these really trashy shows full of rich men in the audience, he said. Ghislaine acted as the kind of Nazi guard, telling everyone where they were sitting in the audience and that she had new Pop-Tarts, which is what she called the young models. Epstein's lawyer, L. Brands, and Maxwell's attorney did not return messages seeking comment. Now, there is a lot to chew on with this whole topic here, much more than I could ever provide in one video. I do want to suggest to you this video right here, thanks to the Anon who sent me this the other day. This is entitled The Devil of Little St. James, the true Jeffrey Epstein story. And it's about a 46-minute documentary, so I highly suggest checking it out. It will be provided down in the links below in the video description. You can check that out. Now, in regards to Ghislaine Maxwell's family, like I said, her father, Robert Maxwell, was long suspected to be a Mossad agent, taking in money from Russia. He had a lot of Israel ties, of course, and ties to SIS, MI6. This was long known. He actually got popped for his involvement in the Mirror Group Publishing. He was stealing money from their pension fund, and that was something that we did know. He was that was highly publicized. But he was also part of Macmillan Publishing, London Daily News, lots of big publications. He was pretty darn influential, and like I said, long suspected to be Mossad. So that would be my guess. What we're talking about here, we're probably implying Israel. Now, his death in 1991 was highly suspicious. He was found off of his boat, which was named Lady Ghislaine, and that was near the Canary Islands. It was like he just fell off the boat and drowned. And even though they thought it was a very suspicious story, the judge ruled out that it was just, some heart issue or something like that. But he ended up being buried in the Mount of Olives in Jerusalem, and there you go. Now, in regards to the Q post here, follow the family UK, US being 1 and 2. Umbrella surveillance, leapfrog 1 through 4 points of contact. So if you're not familiar with what we're talking about here, just like the FISA surveillance, leapfrogging means that if I spy on person A and person A is hanging out with person A, B, and C, because they're connections, I can now surveil person B and A, B, and C, I can basically, spy on the contacts. Now, if, say, person B also ends up going off and talking to somebody of note, now I can spy on that person too. That's called a leapfrog. So leapfrogging to 1 through 4. Now, if UK and US are 1 and 2, are we looking for 2 more countries? Not sure. Are we talking about Israel here? Not exactly sure, but I want to take another angle here. Open source, find number 4, and then they give us this link right here. And it takes you to Zimbio.com, and this is a photo set. And of course, you can see Ghislaine Maxwell, and I'm at picture number 4, where it's the same exact picture as we saw in the New York Post. And this was an event at the WIE Symposium at Center 548 on September 20th, 2013. So let's take a look at that WIE. And here they are, the Women's Inspiration and Enterprise. Let's find a little bit more about them, what they do and who they are and what they're all about. This is their founder, Dee Poku Spalding, social entrepreneur who was born in the UK and raised between London and Accra. She's the founder and CEO of WIE, an influential women's leadership network. WIE connects emerging and established women leaders and works to equip the next generation with the tools to succeed. What are those tools, I wonder? Well, let's talk about some of these symposiums and speakers, including Donna Karan, Arianna Huffington, Queen Rania, Melinda Gates, which probably involves Bill Gates and Melinda Gates and Bill Gates Foundation, Diane von Furstenberg, Nancy Pants Pelosi, Jill Biden, Alec Weck, Katie Couric, Tyra Banks, wasn't she also a Victoria's Secret model? Lauren Bush, Elizabeth Bank, Iman, she's also a model, and I think she lived nearby Epstein Island. Rosario Dawson and Christy Turlington, who was also a Victoria's Secret model. How about that? Down here it says a former Hollywood studio executive. Yeah, surprise, surprise. Dee's background includes senior marketing roles at Paramount Pictures and Focus Features, a division of Universal Pictures. So now we're getting into the casting couch. Working with the likes of Angelina Jolie. How about that? Brad Pitt, Reese Witherspoon, Scarlett Johansson, Bill Murray, Emily Blunt, and Penelope Cruz. So I think you see where we're going with this. She oversaw the international movie release campaigns for films including Al Gore's An Inconvenient Truth, which was basically just a slideshow, the Coen brothers, No Country for Old Men, and Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? All right, so very interesting stuff, and I believe Oh Brother, Where Art Thou had featured George Clooney, who was recently spotted on a boat with Obama. Okay, so I think you see what's going on here. There's a lot of crazy stuff here. Now, I'm not exactly sure if this is the connection, but it could very well be. Now, let us leapfrog into another connection. I want to point something out too, and this might be off topic because I don't know, but I want to point out that another Victoria's Secret model, this Carly Kloss, ended up marrying Jared Kushner's brother right there, Josh Kushner, and this was actually a big deal. The family wouldn't talk to her for about 6 years. Now, I don't want to go way into this because I'm not sure if it's related, but eventually they kind of started talking to her, and it talks about how Jared and Josh kind of kept in touch the whole time, but the family didn't want to meet her and this and that, but she was also a former model for Victoria's Secret. Now Q goes on to mention the New York Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Children, and we talked about that group yesterday. Lots of connections: Rothschilds, Rockefellers, and of course Ghislaine Maxwell. And I suppose if we are talking about the UK and US being 1 and 2, maybe number 4 is just simply talking about Israel and Mossad. That seems to be the case given what we know about Jeffrey Epstein and of course Ghislaine Maxwell's father. I highly suggest you watch that video. But I want to take you kind of down a different path because I know a lot of people are doing good research on this and there's so many connections, but I want to show you one that maybe others aren't talking about. This is one of the oldest groups in the world, like I told you yesterday. It was founded in 1874. But it used to be called the Jerry Society. And the Jerry Society was named after this guy right here, Elbridge Thomas Gerry. He was the grandson of U.S. Vice President Elbridge Gerry. And he was also known as the Commodore due to the office he held with the New York Yacht Club. How about that? Now, this society's been around for a very, very long time. I want to point out just about him that he was entombed in the churchyard of St. James Church in Hyde Park, New York. And Hyde Park, New York has got a lot of activists living there. Let's just say that. There's a lot of people living in Hyde Park. So very interesting stuff. But let's go back to this Jerry Society. And I know the print is really, really small here. It's so hard on Wikipedia to show you this. But I want to point this thing out because this was really suspect. In the late 1870s, Jerry persuaded the police department to allow society agents, nicknamed Jerry Men, to keep children away from immoral activities such as the theater, amusement parks, penny arcades, and poor and immigrant neighborhoods. Jerry was keen to enforce child labor laws regarding performance. Moving beyond street theater and acrobatics, he turned to juvenile theater, which caused controversy with those involved in the theater. Anti-Jerry campaign groups formed, and the mayor of New York was persuaded to limit Jerry's power and set out proper regulation of child stage performers. So it looks like it goes all the way back to this Jerry Society society. And it sounds to me like these Jerry men were going to all these places like the theater and amusement parks and penny arcades, places where kids go to keep them away from immoral activities and make sure that they put them in a little traveling theater, which probably later became a whole bunch of other stuff, which later became what we know now to be this massive human trafficking issue. Now, I'm not sure, but I got to tell you, that sounds extremely suspect. I also want to point out that one of the other founders of the New York Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Children, or the Jerry Society, was a Henry Berg. And Henry Berg was real instrumental in kind of getting this group wrapped up with the legal system. As a matter of fact, after the New York Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Children opened up or began, lots more arrests were coming out, and they were attributing it to the society, but the arrests were all crimes, sexual crimes against children. I find that very, very odd. Outwardly, it seems like, okay, these guys were the ones who were kind of instrumental in creating all these arrests, but it seems very, very suspect. This guy Berg also, at the time, in the late 1870s, was also lobbying to flog children as part of a discipline for, them hanging out at the penny arcades, I guess. So I got to tell you, that sounds really, really suspect. And for such an old group, it wouldn't surprise me if this has been incredibly pervasive. Let's move on to 3429, 47 minutes after the hour of 2. How do you eliminate a liability? Where is Epstein being held? Reconciled. Do you believe in coincidences? Powerful people connected. Panic, panic, panic. Okay, it's just one panic, but I like to say it. Anyway, Epstein's being held in New York, and there was a massive blackout there. And I guess we're talking about powerful people. What kind of powerful people? Are we talking about Con Edison? And if you have watched my video, The Weatherman, you would know that back in the day, Con Edison, one of the main board founders there, was Thomas G. Ayers, whose son Bill Ayers was also the founder of the Weatherman Underground. Interesting indeed. So there's probably no connections there. Let's take a look at that blackout. Now we're over here on the Googly Maps, and if you look down at the bottom of your screen, this red ping right there, that's the Metropolitan Correctional Center. And then just below it here, this was kind of the blackout area here. It's a pretty big area. Carnegie Hall, Rockefeller Center, Trump Towers, a few of Trump's different properties are right here. But this is more Midtown Manhattan. This is where the blackout actually occurred. Now, the blackout very well could have been a distraction to try and break him free. Could have been an attempt on his life. Who knows? At this point, Epstein is certainly a liability, right? But this was a Con Ed job for sure. And now, I don't know. There could have been a series of tunnels. We know that New York has tunnels, like a lot of these cities. Who knows really what happened? If they were trying to spring him free, trying to kill him both. Don't really know, but we weren't really sure yesterday if this was a white hat, black hat operation. It seems to me like Q's at least tipping us off to the fact that it may be a black hat operation that was committed out of their panic, panic, panic. Let's move on. Post 3430, 50 minutes after the hour of 2. Q simply says, the Great Awakening. Indeed it is. And this is so much more than just about politics, right? This is about really our culture and how this has infiltrated our society, our music, our entertainment, our politics, all of it. It's disgusting, and it needs to be shared with everybody so that we can widen the scope of this Great Awakening. Let's move on to 3431, 52 minutes after the hour 2. We get this picture right here. Ghislaine Maxwell, and that's her on the right, and Guess. And this is homeboy from Duran Duran. Let me talk about him just a sec. Here she is with a Rothschild. Left to right, Nat Rothschild, Nefersuvio, Nick Rhodes, and Ghislaine Maxwell attend the National Youth Orchestra of the United States of America reception at the Royal Albert Hall, hosted by Ronald O. Perlman in London. Okay, well, I think we all know what to think about when we see Rothschilds, and we know that Rothschilds are connected to the Maxwells. As a matter of fact, we just had the Dersh, who was came out on Fox News saying that it was Linda Rothschild that introduced him to Maxwell in the first place. Now, this Nefersuvio seems to be a model. And she's married to homeboy right here. He's the keyboardist for Duran Duran. And if you ever want to see, a great band, but look into some of their lyrics, and it's a lot of real telling stuff in some of their music. She's about 20 years younger than him, which is already kind of weird, but hey, I guess she's legal. But let's talk a little bit about Ronald Perlman in a second here. Q says, coincidence. Those mentioned in the past are now coming into light. Think Linda Rothschild. Well, we just talked about her. Gloria Vanderbilt. Gloria Vanderbilt, whose son is Anderson Cooper. And look how wrapped up they are in society and in our news. Now, she was supposed to have died broke, but we all know she left a bunch of coin to Anderson Cooper after saying that she probably wasn't going to. Think Epstein. Think Well, I suppose there's a few families we could plug in there. But for now, let's check out Ronald Perelman. And Ronald Perelman, born January 1st, 1943, American banker, businessman, investor, and philanthropist. Yeah, he's part of Forbes Incorporated, and there's a lot of interesting things here, but I think it's really that philanthropy that seems to really stick out. He seems to give a lot of money. Now, he attended the Wharton School, just like President Trump up there in Pennsylvania, but acquired McAndrews and Forbes, Technicolor. These were big businesses. Also, New World Entertainment, Four Star International. These were a really bunch of big groups, and then, of course, in 2005, he sued Morgan Stanley. There was a lot of different stories with this guy. He was also briefly married to Ellen Barkin, who incidentally blocked me on Twitter. Yeah, I don't know why. Maybe I said something rude. Anyway, he was also married to Patricia Duff, Faith Golden. Sounds like he's been around this a couple times. Perelman also donated $100 million to Columbia University, which has long been known a place that loves to give degrees to far left activists. Just saying. And he also gave a bunch of coin to build a performing arts center at the World Trade Center, which seems like an odd thing to build at the World Trade Center. But I have a feeling we might be talking about him. I want to do a little bit more digging on him because there's a lot with him. The guy's long been a mogul, particularly in the entertainment industry, and he seems to like marrying entertainers, which leads me to think that this is probably the connection that we're talking about. Let's move on for now to 3432. 15 minutes after the hour 3, we get a couple more pictures here on the island, and I think what they're trying to turn us on to is what looks to be a bunch of little connections to underground bunkers, tunnels, and things like that. That's what these arrows seem to be pointing to in this overhead view. And then we have this picture right here where you can see, looks like an above ground double doored facility here with a little staging area. Looks like you can walk right up to it. Probably goes right there into somewhere underground. That clearly looks like a tunnel right there. And I don't know if you can see it up close, but there's a couple double doors there, which looks like you could even drive a vehicle there. It looks like the driveway even kind of veers off into it. And this Anon says, this is the area I'm really interested in. We have not one, but 2 tunnel bunker entrances, one of them leading under the flagpole / house. Yeah, likely. And I think that's what we've known all along, is that there's a bunch of tunnels down there and a bunch of knuckleheadedry going on down there. Now, this link just takes you to Google Maps. You can check it out for yourself and go around and look and let me know what you think. Q says, this is not another 4-year election. Drain the swamp does not simply refer to removal of those corrupt in D.C. God wins. Yeah, this is truly evil stuff that we're talking about. And right now, we're talking about just a flat out it's the fourth quarter for all these knuckleheads. You know, they're trying to knock out power in Manhattan. That's a big deal. And the fact that we have El Chapo and Epstein in the same prison, that is also a really big deal. For those of you who may not remember, El Chapo was somebody that, we were long going after. And it wasn't just about the drugs. Like I said, it wasn't just about the guns. This was about human trafficking. And it looks like this is about to bust wide open. Let's move on. Post 3433, 21 minutes after the hour of 3, fake news attacks only validate the message. Old guard threatened. Think size and scope of continual MSM attacks. Godfather 3Q. All right, well, I might be barking up the wrong tree here, but Q has mentioned Godfather 3 quite a few times, and for those of you who have followed the series, you probably remember this movie, but it follows crime boss Michael Corleone, who by this stage in the game is older and is feeling a lot of guilt for all the things that have happened, particularly after members of his own side have passed away because of a lot of his decisions. Anyway, in this particular movie, he decides that he's going to give a whole bunch of money to the Vatican to help out the Catholic Church in exchange for shares in this Internazionale Immobiliare, and it was basically this big real estate company. Well, think about all these different real estate stories that we've been talking about, from Guggenheim, Getty, all these big Rockefellers, Rothschilds. How about the LA gun story where we had all the tunnels under these massive properties that weren't even being maintained? It was all about having the land so that you could build the tunnels underneath it. And of course, now we see the Epstein thing blowing wide open. And if you've not followed Q for a long time, Q has implied that Epstein Island was kind of one point on this sort of north, south, east, west star that was pointing out these different gods and satanic kind of stuff and rituals and all this crazy stuff, right? Now, this is where I need your help because I think I might be onto something, but I need somebody to rememberize me. In regards to this Internationale Immobiliare, there was a group that was very much like this. That's a real group, banking real estate group, and they own this island in France. And on this tiny little island, very much like the islands that we saw off of, kind of near Washington, like Epstein's Island, there was a place that I located that had this hotel that's just recently been converted by this Immobiliare. Now, unfortunately, I can't remember what this island name was, and I believe it was somewhere in France. So for some of our French patriots, if you know what I'm talking about, I would love it if you sent this to me because I will do a story on this. But I'm wondering if that's what we're talking about. But in general, even if I'm missing the boat on this, what we are talking about is how all these groups, these powerful families, have also connected into not only just mafia like the Pelosi families and the Gavin Newsoms of the world and all the old school mobsters, but we're also talking about the Vatican, right? One of the largest banks in the world, too. And of course, they're all wearing red shoes because they're part of that crew too. And we all know they've got a little rapey problem in their camp too. So this is really disturbing. And you don't think the Pope's getting his kids from Sunday school, right? No, you got to have a Ghislaine Maxwell. You got to have a Podesta. You got to have a whomever, right? Whoever's facilitating this. And of course, they do it under the guise of all these humanitarian groups and different kinds of PACs and organizations and human rights groups. You know how it works, right? The money moves everywhere. And of course, all the while, our children are being funneled into, whether it be Hollywood, modeling like Victoria's Secret or whatnot, TV, commercials. It all goes, even through the church. It basically shuttles them all around. And this is this massive ring that we're uncovering. This is what it's all about. And so I think that that's probably the reference to The Godfather 3. Now, in regards to the French island, I'm so sorry I couldn't remember the name. It's been months since I even kind of brushed against that story. But if you do happen to have that, please do me a favor and email me because I would love to know more about that story. Let's move on for now. 34, 50 minutes after the hour 6, Q says a week to remember. Now, I just want to point out that Q did not say this week is a week to remember. Now, it may be a week to remember, but I'm just saying that Q didn't say this week is a week to remember. Q just said a week to remember. So we don't know if it's this week. We don't know if it's next week. It's already been pretty memorable. I can tell you as a content creator, I haven't stopped. I got more digs than I need. I don't need any more stories. I need more hours to cover these stories. But it definitely has been a week to remember. It might very well be this week to remember, or it might be next week. That's a week to remember. But let's just remember that Q rememberized us, that it's a week to remember. We don't know which week. And now we're moving on. Post 3435, 7 minutes after the hour 9. Smollett federal charges coming. Watch the news. These people are stupid. Boy, I really would like to get my Weatherman video out soon before this all busts out wide. But I just want you to keep in mind that, remember, Smollett is being represented by Mark Garagos, okay? And Mark Garagos is wrapped up with the Bronfmans. Mark Garagos also got popped with Michael Avenatti, who represented Stormy Daniels, who was likely in NXIVM. This stuff is all connected. Smollett is also Cook County, Kim Fox. That's all connected with R. Kelly. R. Kelly, human trafficking. It's all connected. And the Smollett thing is a really big deal. And the Smollett family, not just Jussie Smollett, is a really big deal. And I have a feeling and a really sneaky suspicion that it goes even further back than we imagined. Not even so much on the mother's side. So I'm not sure yet. But this is some crazy stuff. These charges were going to be a big deal. I said it back then. It was going to be a big deal. Don't forget about Les Moonves. Q says these people are stupid. Q. All right, kids, those are your Q posts. I want to talk at you a little bit about this story, too. This is from the 14th. JetBlue flight evacuated after picture of a suicide vest sent to every iPhone on board. A JetBlue plane about to take off from Newark Airport Saturday had to be evacuated after someone, possibly a passenger on the flight, sent a photo of a suicide vest to everyone's Apple device, sources said. The flight bound to Tampa left the gate and was on the runway at 7:20 a.m. when someone airdropped the photo into everyone on the plane's iPhone, including 2 flight attendants, sources said. The flight attendants alerted the pilot, who immediately declared an emergency. The flight was stopped and evacuated. All the luggage and cargo was removed onto the tarmac so it could be inspected, sources said. After nothing was found, passengers were allowed back onto the flight, which left the airport about noon. Authorities are trying to track down the person responsible for the airdrop, an iPhone function where someone can send a picture to every Apple device within 30 feet. Okay, well, that's important to know. There were a lot of people asking on Twitter, how do they get the numbers? Well, I believe from what I understand, it's kind of like a Wi-Fi. It's almost like a little setting up your own little hotspot. Anybody that has that kind of iPhone in the vicinity will get pinged with this, and then you choose to whether or not you want to accept and look at the pic. That's how I understand it, but this is really, really strange. Now, this can also happen on a Android phone too. They have something like it. I don't think it's called airdropping, but they do have something that's like this. But I find it very curious that this was iPhones, Apple phones, because I talked at you last year about JetBlue. This was when Q was talking about JetBlue planes. On the Q post, we were talking about this thing called Apple Pay. JetBlue had made a deal with Apple to start accepting Apple Pay, where you can pay with your iPhone. So they already had a kind of connection. And that was the first connection that I had noticed. And of course, the reason why I thought that was funky was because, many of us have talked about this uninterruptible autopilot, the MCAS system, things like that. These things can be controlled possibly through something like that. Now, I'm not saying that's what it is. I'm just saying that those are things that are possible. And the reason why we think about this at all is because JetBlue has also been implicated in delivering some pizza, if you know what I mean. They made a deal with a certain pizza conglomerate that they were going to send pizza around the world. And I think we all know what that implies at this point. And if you do not, I highly suggest you look into Pizzagate, and you'll know exactly what we're talking about. And Q seems to sort of confirm this. Q was also confirming that this JetBlue had a relation with big tech, which leads me to think that we are talking about Apple, we're talking about JetBlue, we're talking about human trafficking, and it's all very, very creepy. And finally, let me leave you with a little bit of quick maths from Enoch on Twitter. 42,000 customers without power. We are talking about the Manhattan blackout, which incidentally is now a Staten Island blackout. That is happening now, and that is also Con Ed. 42nd Street. 42nd year anniversary of 77 blackout. Who is the 42nd president of the United States? Message sent. And I'll let you do the math on who the 42nd president of the United States is. And I would also like to add in, I'm going to actually give the credit to where it's due to Julian's Rum, who says, and wouldn't you know it, the address of Wheels Up is 220 West 42nd Street. No. All right. If you like this video, please click like, share, and subscribe. Thanks to all of you who already do that. I greatly appreciate it. If you're new here, welcome to you. Please understand that all the things that I just asked you to do will get undid. Yeah, that's right. Ninjas will come and unsubscribe you in the middle of the night when you're sleeping peacefully with visions of sugar plums in your head. Yep, it'll get undone. You'll get unnotified and whatever. Just do me a favor. Click yourself back. You don't need to ask me why. You don't need to ask me how. I'm not tech support. I don't know why. I just know that it happens, and I'm warning you. And those of you who actually watch this part of the video will have all the answers to that. You'll know what to do. Just re-click yourself, resubscribe yourself, re-notify yourself. I would greatly appreciate it, like I appreciate all of you. All my links are down below. My Gab, my BitChute, my Real.video, and I'm over here on Twitter at IPOT1776. IPOT1776. I'm also on DropSpace. My email is down below. If you want to send me information, please do not DM me on Twitter. Please do not DM me on Twitter. If you have information, please send it to my email where I will actually read it. Thank you very much. And if you want to send something old school, I got a P.O. box down below. And if you'd like to support the channel, My Patreon link is down below too. They're all down below. Where are they? They're down below. Yep, indeedy. All right, this is Sir Patrick Mack, and until next time, stay funky.